Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Welcome and hello to the special episode of Seeds of Justice. My name is Rocky Guzman. I'm the Deputy Director of the Asian Research Institute for Environmental Law, or ARIEL, and I'm honored to be the host of today's session. So, why are we here in Geneva? So, from this week to next week, the 5th of August to the 14th, we are on the second part of the fifth session of the Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee, or INC 5.2 of the Global Plastics Treaty, where we seek to establish an international legally binding instrument to eliminate plastic pollution. We've been here for 1 week and we have one more week left. We're halfway through the process, but the question is this week going to be the turning point as we conclude the treaty on the fight against plastic pollution? So, to answer that and to give you more insight on what's happening on the ground, we go straight in the heart of the action here in Geneva. And we have here Salisa, or whom we fondly call Yam, from the Environmental Justice Foundation in Thailand, to tell us more about what's happening here in Geneva and the INC process. So, hi, Yam. How are you feeling
Hi,
today?
feeling very good. It's very sunny here in Geneva.
Great. So, we've been here for 1 week already. But first, can you tell us more, like what your role is and what has your involvement been in the INC process?
Sure. So I am a senior campaigner and I also oversee the plastics project
Mhm.
with Environmental Justice Foundation or EJF. And I'm based in Bangkok, Thailand. Actually, EJF started to monitor this negotiations process since INC4. And my role is, to be here as an observer and also monitor the negotiations. But I guess, all of us as the citizen of the world, we are
Mhm.
also a cheerleader to the countries who are coming here to negotiate to share them up that at the end of the day we really want to see this very first treaty that would talk about plastic pollution from the life cycle perspective, and that's definitely what we're here for.
Right. So I like what you said. This is going to be a landmark treaty, and it will affect every one of us, every person, every citizen of the world should have a stake on this because plastic pollution is such a huge problem, and there's a plastic pollution crisis happening all over the world right now.
Yeah.
So now, Yam, we've been here for 1 week already. There has been a lot of like long days here in Geneva, but what can you say has been the progress so far in all these negotiations?
I think for the fact that I think we need to refer back to INC5
Hmm.
because a lot of people actually said INC5 was a failure. We didn't complete, we didn't finish. But from my view, at towards the end, it was the ambition countries who stood up and do not back down. That's why we are now here in INC 5.2, which is the second part of this negotiation, of the finals negotiation, right? So I feel like that's already the progress. And we came into INC 5.2 with so much hope. But unfortunately, after the long days that we have been here, I feel like it is very amazing that we're still doing the text negotiation line by line, and that now the text has become again bloated and very difficult to see how it is going to come into an agreement.
Right.
So yes, there's progress that has been made, but it's been very slow. There are countries who's trying to derail the process as well. But still, we need to come into this that we still have hope, and let's, be, I guess, encouraging the countries to move forward.
As you said, we came here with so much hope in the process because there has been so much progress made over the last few years of negotiations. But right now, you mentioned something like there has been some snags like with the negotiation process. So can you tell us more about these? What have been like the challenges and specifically the sticking points that have been like derailing the process of these negotiations?
I think apart from the text that has been bloated at
Mm-hmm.
the moment, it's very difficult to read. I think one of the things that has not been clear since 2 years ago, where the UN resolution was approved that we were going to do this, the rule of procedure has not been agreed upon, and right now everything that we're saying right now needs to reach consensus. And as I think everybody has already known, the tech is bloated. there are countries in all the spectrum of opinions. Some would want, no text. Some would want text. Some would want text, but not like this. Or some would want more words. Some would want less words. And the fact that everything has to come into consensus, we don't really see the direction how we're gonna come into an agreement when with such divergence and bloated text. So I think procedural right now has become an obstacle for the negotiations to actually reach or achieve what it actually is to achieve.
There have been so many issues to raise, right? The procedure is one. No, it's been very challenging, especially with the bloating of the text, right? But there have been like some points of hope, I guess, as well, right? And especially with Environmental Justice Foundation and the network of CSOs and the public, what have you been advocating for? What key issues or mechanisms or provisions in the text would you like to see and you pushing hard for the countries to adopt in this treaty?
So for us, the inclusion of a language on reuse systems is very important, and let me tell you why. All the narratives that we talk when we talk about addressing plastic pollution, I think the first thing that people will come up with is that, oh, we need to change the behavior of consumers. We need to raise awareness among the citizens, but I think that is very questionable, and I may ask you a question as well, like if we are relying on people to change, but when everything is given to you, any products that you consume today are wrapped in plastics. How are you going to actually really change your behavior? So reuse systems is actually an infrastructure that we need. And by reuse systems, we are also advocating for these systems to also be toxic free, that is safe for human health and also the environment, because without it, we would not be able to shift from the single-use culture that we are in to a more reusable and more circular practices. And it is going to be impossible to actually just tell someone to stop, for example, using single-use bottles and use reusable bottles, but then there's no water refill stations for them to actually refill water with. People need to drink water. So I think that's why inclusion of the language of toxic-free reuse systems is very important to be present in the text.
A good point that you said, your toxic-free reuse system. So what we need is a systemic, change of the framework that we're operating in. It's important that we have this framework that changes the whole systems, and that's why we want to advocate. Why you want to advocate for a reuse system, toxics-free system that would change the landscape of how we operate in this plastic space. So right now, Yam, I want to go closer to home because we have a lot of audiences here from Southeast Asia, from the ASEAN region. I want to ask you, like, what are some of the specific challenges for ASEAN region itself, and what are the opportunities that you can see where we can work together in solving some of these issues to address plastic pollution in the region in Southeast Asia?
I think Southeast Asia is a very unique region because we are all impacted by plastic pollution. Many countries in Southeast Asia ranks the top 10 of being impacted by plastic pollution. But on the other hand, Southeast Asian countries also ranked in the top 10 of plastic producer and production as well. So I feel like, this is such a unique situation that we're in, because at the end of the day, if we try to balance the benefits of the petrochemical industry and also trying to protect people and planet, I don't think that will ever cross paths, because we need to admit that the petrochemical industry and the fossil fuel industry is generating a lot of impacts on both human health and also the environment, be it in terms of climate, in terms of the environment, also in terms of land grabbing. There's a lot of issues that come with this industry. So I think unless we decide if we are going to go for either the benefits of this industry or we are going to protect people and planet, if we don't make that decision, we will never be able to come into a conclusion as a region if we are if we will be able to combat or address plastic pollution. I also think that's another challenge when it comes to narrative again. A lot of the times we talk about plastics, and that we need to manage it once it become waste. So we need to, a lot of regulations, for example, in Thailand, start managing plastic pollution once once you already use it, you drink your water and you already put it in the dustbin. And that's when we start managing it. But well, plastics is from fossil fuel, so it actually starts having impact on people and planet since its generation, and without expanding the dialogues around how do we actually going to solve this from a waste issue to a life cycle issue, I think we are stuck. I think we are not going the right way, and a lot of downstream, as would say, when it comes to waste management, we call it downstream solutions. A lot of them are also in going in a direction of being a false solutions as well. So false solution for EJF, we mean that if you are trying to address something and you're not addressing it from the root cause, in terms of policy, in terms of national regulation, that's when we say it's false solution. Trying to deal with plastics from such an angle, which is very downstream, I don't think we'll be able to actually address this at all.
Now, there's so many issues that you raise, and a lot of decisions also, and that also reflects in the negotiations here, right? But at the end of the day, I like what you said, what you highlighted, is we have to prioritize the people and the planet. And that's why we're all here together, like working collectively, all the nations of the world, to have a global plastics framework that would, prioritize the people and the planet, right?
Yeah.
And of course, the downstream is important, but we also have to look at the whole life cycle. And that's what the mandate is also from the United Nations Environment Assembly, and why we are here in the first place, to cover the entire life cycle of plastics. So let's go to the next question. And you're from the Environmental Justice Foundation, EJF, which is an NGO. And there are a lot of civil society organizations here. There are a lot of the public is also here looking at us. So what do you think is like the role of CSOs, NGOs? What does it play in holding countries accountable in this whole process, and also in the implementation later on of this treaty?
I think actually in an ideal world, we would want, the government to be accountable by themselves, because, that this is what they're here for. They're here to protect people and planet. But that's an ideal world. In the real world, different people will have to play this different part. And I think civil society participation in this kind of negotiations is very important because, for example, there's a lot of NGOs presenting here, working very closely, and a lot of them are frontline communities who are impacted by plastic pollution firsthand. They're the first people to actually have to deal with this. And inclusion of their voices, amplifying their voices, so that what is going on in reality can be reflected in such an important global instrument that hopefully is legally binding. And at the end of the day, what we're trying to do here is that we need to have a global agreement that is practically replicable and also translate into national legislations, right? And in order to do that, you need to understand what is really going on in reality, and who to ask, who knows best about this. You need to ask from those who are impacted. And that's why I would say that the inclusion and participation of CSO in these negotiations is very important. And it is vital to get a strong treaty that we're all hoping for. And when it comes to this, other things is that we, at the end of the day, are just citizens, and what we can do is that. But the global treaty will definitely help us when it comes to when we go back home and we want something to happen. If the global treaties already state that governments in the world are mandated to do whatever is written on the treaty, that's when we can use it to find accountability from our governments as well. This is why it's very important. First, participation of civil society in the negotiation phase. also for the treaty to be legally binding, to have strong words, to have strong measures, and then that's when it reflects back to civil society work after INC. So everything is now going in circle. We need everything. We need everything in line with each other for us to be able to be part of making this happen back home.
We're very glad to see a very strong network of CSOs, of NGOs, stakeholders who are really committed to this cause. And we can see it like every day, working with governments, working together, to really push for a strong global plastics treaty. But now let's go because like we have a lot of listeners, like the public who might not be that familiar with this process, but who would be very keen to support and help in whatever way they can. So, what can you say can the public play a role in this? Can you tell us more how the public can be engaged in this process?
I am a true believer in the power of the people. And I think, even though when we talk about global plastics treaty, it might feel so far away from you if you're really like, if you're not in the field, if you're just, trying to survive, right? But at the end of the day, we have to understand that the treaty that is going to be agreed is going to help push any regulations that we might already have or not have in our countries to make this problem or this the plastic pollution better. So I think right now the easiest way for the public to be part is to definitely speak up, or it can be either your social media, or like talk to your friends, or even like participate in some of the campaigns that the CSO have put out, to send your voice, because your voice, even though it's just one voice, it is strong enough if it's combined, if it's collective. And I think it is really time is running out, and we need as many people as possible to come together to tell the world and world leaders and your government that we need this, and we will not back down as well if this is not going to be delivered, because this treaty is for everyone. As you said in the beginning, plastic is full of chemicals, and it's also made from fossil fuel. So at the end of the day, it's impacting everyone. So to have this is to protect people and planet for real.
Great. It may seem far away, right, at this level, the plastics treaty negotiations, but I like what you said. It affects each and every one of us, and everyone has a stake on this, and everyone can play a role here, make your voices heard, to have that at the policy level and at the local level and whatever sphere you're in. So now let's go to the last point because we are in the final stretch of the final round of negotiations.
Yeah,
And
hopefully.
hopefully, and by the 14th of August, 1 week from now, we might have concluded already an international legally binding instrument that seeks to end plastic pollution. But at this point, with everything that's happened in this process, Yam, so what keeps you optimistic? And what hope can you see in the future for all of this?
I would have to say that it's every time before I come here, I would tell my family that this is something I've always looking forward to, because first of all, you get to be in to witness this historic moment, countries coming together, and they are definitely countries who are ambitious, who really want to solve the problem. And I think to look at like political figure and also governments, who are really care about people and their people and planet, that's always is very inspiring to me. And the fact that you get to also meet observers who are mostly NGOs from around the world, be it indigenous peoples groups, be it those who are at the front line, and waste pickers, everyone come together for one goal. One common goal is to end plastic pollution, and I feel like that is what keeps me hopeful every day. It also inspires me, and when it comes to global negotiation, it's not going to be all easy, but seeing people standing up and that they really want this to happen it's amazing, and I think it's just once in a lifetime experience to be here and also to be able to participate. And I hope that this energy, this dynamic, also translates to post INC, to the national level, to everyone actually watching this, that we can really do this, and we can do this together.
Sure, hope so. Thank you so much, Yam. The passion and the hope and the resolve of putting the people and the planet first is so palpable and so infectious in this. And we're really looking forward to conclude in a good note, something that will give us hope for the future, the plastics free world that we live in. So,
Mhm.
again, thank you very much. That was Salisa or Yam from Thailand, representing the Environmental Justice Foundation. And this concludes our special episode of Seeds of Justice with a focus on the Global Plastics Treaty. This has been Rocky Guzman, the Deputy Director of ARIEL, and I hope to see you all in the next one. Goodbye, everyone.